Welcome back to my first little solo soiree in a sanctum. Samara is not able to join us this morning because she is busy and booked because that lady is busy, which is a great segue, I think, into the guest that we've got joining us today. When I say us, I mean me. I keep forgetting that I'm by myself. A face that many of you may be familiar with, but in different contexts this time. I am joined by the beautiful Sherri from Connected Being Co. I think that this conversation is super timely. I know for myself because I have been really aware that my nervous system is telling me that I need to make some changes. And being a person who has a tendency to burn the candle, not even at both ends. I just drop the candle in a fire and just melt it all and then think, oh no, how are we going to pull it back together? It's like, who can we talk to? Who knows the ways that we can sort this out and look after the body? And you do. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to chat with you about a really important topic. And yes, it's me in a different light. And it's definitely something I'm passionate about and have spent sort of the last 8 years working within the breathwork space and really understanding and learning the nervous system. So I'm super excited to unpack all of that and share a little bit about what the nervous system is as well. I think we hear a lot of buzzwords
Yeah.
in the wellness space and what it is and how it works. So let's unpack it all.
So so you've been like going down this path for 8 years. What initially led you into that space?
Yeah, I had a really, really traumatic childhood, and I've spent most of my 20s and my late 20s stuck in freeze, which is a
Oh,
body response from growing up quite disconnected from your main caregivers. So, both my parents. I had also found out that I had a father that wasn't my biological father. And so there was a lot to really unpack around my childhood and how I was raised.
yeah.
And I spent the age of 7 up until 14 not having a home. So I spent most of my younger adolescent years moving around. My parents weren't around. And if you think about that, they're those years where you're held, you're
Yeah,
loved, you're
absolutely.
seen. And, you then go into your 20s, navigating life with lots of failed relationships, consistently in this like erratic behavior. You then go down the route of partying and hiding things and not really understanding like what's actually stored in your body. And it wasn't until I kind of hit 30, had a really failed relationship, and I had so many questions as to how and why I am the way that I am. And I had met friends had recommended me different healers and therapy and all sorts of things as you sort of do as you're kind of navigating your 30s. And I went to a breathwork workshop, and I had never in my whole entire life ever had a body response like that. And the breathwork experience literally brought up so much of my childhood memories that I had suppressed.
Oh yeah, and we got to stash those issues somewhere. And one of my favorite sayings is we stash those issues in our tissues, as in our
We
physical body tissues.
we definitely do. And I no one warned me, right? So I rocked up to this breathwork class and was like, whoa. And I think that that's also a good thing too, because
Yeah,
we you just got to kind of show up to these things sometimes and let the body do what it needed to do. And the flow and effect after that breathwork class and unpacking so much trauma that I had literally stored in my body was the gateway to me working out what I needed to do and what I needed to work on. And after kind of spending a few years doing, you know, a lot of these workshops and realizing how powerful the breath is, I was like, oh my God, I have to teach the rest of the world how important it is to really understand our breath, work on our nervous system. And lo and behold, we're now in this kind of space right now where breathwork is a topic and the nervous system is a topic. And I'm super fortunate that I work out of a breathwork studio based here in Melbourne called No Name Studios, and we run daily classes. So to now have a space where people can come daily to reset their nervous system, work through things that are holding them back, that says so much to how important this space is and what the future of mental health and wellness really is. And it's important. We have to kind of work on the things that shaped us and understand these things in order for us to show up in the world and just be better humans in our workplaces, in our relationships, across the spectrum.
I don't think people really understand the impact that their circumstances have on the person that they become. And as you say, like it's quite profound when you have those moments and you're like, oh gosh, I didn't realize that that one thing, because you have those like light bulb moments when it's like, oh, this is from that. And even the knowing that that's where something has come from makes the process of moving forward. I don't ever like to say moving on, but moving forward from that in a different way, or just understanding the responses that you have to certain situations. It's super important. It's funny, I had a really similar experience with breathwork, and again, didn't really know what I was being led into. Was just like, yeah, I'll come to that. Sure. I have a tendency to do that as well. You want to let's jump off that? Sure, let's do it. What could go wrong? But it's quite profound in a way that it's a whole body experience. And I certainly wasn't expecting the challenges and the outcomes and the responses that came from that particular experience. So I can only imagine what ongoing breathwork facilitation can do for the nervous system and for the body. And it's amazing to think, as you say, that we're now at a time where this isn't just something that you'll go to as a one-off work. Like this is something that you can actually be practicing, even if you don't want to practice alone. Like you can practice at a center like you're lucky enough to work out of. Like what a huge shift. Everybody needs to do this all the time.
Absolutely. And I think breathwork is a very simple tool. And I think like we don't need to overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
It is simple. And I think it's really important for everyone to understand that our nervous system has two sides, and the breath can tap into both sides.
When we're talking both sides, are we talking parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system?
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. So in simple terms, we have our sympathetic, which is our fight or flight into our stress responses. And then we have our parasympathetic, which is our rest and digest. Okay.
Yeah.
And our breath can tap into both sides. So when I talk about the trauma and tapping into that, that's when we tap into our sympathetic nervous system and we put our body into a state of safe stress, right? It's safely tapping into that subconscious, because all of our trauma is tapped into our subconscious mind, and that's when it's stored into our body.
Okay. Let's touch quickly on safe stress.
Yeah.
Because I think, because stress is like got a reputation for being a dirty word, right?
Totally.
I don't necessarily agree with it being thought of as a dirty word. So safe stress. Let's talk about safe stress.
Yeah, definitely. So safe stress, when we tap into our sympathetic nervous system on a conscious level. So where our intention is like, this is how I'm feeling, and I feel like I've got a lot of subconscious parts of my body that I need to tap into. So we can go into a type of breath pattern that will go into those deeper layers of that subconscious and those parts of our body. It's also in a safe space with a facilitator that can see the body responses as well, right? That's what we're trained to
Yeah.
do. If we want to take you nice and deep, we're there to guide you, right? Those safe stresses are also preparing our body for heightened states of stress. So when we start to train our body into sometimes these safer stresses, these safer parts of the fight or flight, when we get into stress, so say we go to a breathwork class and we've tapped in and we've gone in deep, we've got our body at a certain point. We've prepared it so that if we start to go into another fight or flight response, A, we've understood it better, and B, our body's responded because it's been used to it. Kind of like going to the gym. When you go to the gym, you start to work a new muscle. The breath has a similar kind of way. When we start to get deep, we start to really go into the diaphragmatic breathing, which is that deep, 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 deep belly breaths, which
Yep.
is where we're supposed to kind of spend a bit of time in. We're training our body to breathe better and get that stress response at a good level. So there's a good space of stress that we can go into.
Yeah. Okay. That's so that would be similar to the idea that I had a coach tell me once a couple of years ago that I needed to have a 3-minute cold shower every morning just to train my brain that sometimes things were going to be uncomfortable, but if you just stuck it out, it was going to be okay. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I feel like it's just those little things, right, that mean that when you get into the really stressful situation, it's, and I think more than ever, I mean, not necessarily speaking from a business owner, well, kind of, but as a parent or as a person that has a lot to do with teenagers, I worry that we have all these young people coming into the world that have no stress response. Like
Absolutely.
everything is so over micromanaged that they can't deal with. I mean, anyone that knows me, if I mention the squash sandwich incident, they will be like, yeah, like, come on. What are we doing for our young people to help them to be able to deal with the hiccups of life, which are normal?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's it's our challenge in our current state of the world, right? But I still think that there's the other side of how children are being raised too, right?
Yeah, okay.
There's if I think about when I look at parenting now, I feel like parents love their children so much more. There's this like presence. There's this because we're a different generation. We're starting to be that healed generation and understand things. Our parents didn't.
Yeah.
So we're the conscious ones. We're the ones trying to do the work. We're the ones trying to work on that generational trauma and flip the switch. So in the collective, what we're doing for the children is really, really, really beautiful. So
Okay.
yes, they may not have the stress responses, but I believe that there's going to be a different container of stress for them. They might not be.
Interesting.
Yeah, because we are a different generation. We're flipping that switch. And so then when your children start to work through the world, they're going to be even more healed. We're going through this like interesting dip of change because the education's there. And yes, social media is quite saturated with the way that we're looking at things and there's so much information out there, but we're learning. We're wanting
Yeah,
to do the
agreed.
work, and that as a collective makes a big difference.
I think that's an interesting perspective to have as well, because I think so often we get, people talking negatively about social media and the impacts of social media, but
Yeah.
social media is actually a great platform for learning and information and education and change as well. Like it's not all bad. And sometimes it's just our perspective of how we're looking at things and what we're looking for, right?
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of studies out there currently right now that, unresolved trauma in the body is linked to so many diseases, right?
Yeah.
So if we think about it from that for a moment, we're working on ourselves so that we can show up better in the world. And that's also we're working on that so we don't get those diseases, and the autoimmune diseases are the like highest thing linked to our trauma and not and stress, right? There was like a whole conversation around that specific part. But if we think about that right now, your children are not going to have the childhood trauma. So we're wiping out, right? We're wiping out some of these diseases.
I have an interesting perspective on that because I have a lot of autoimmune diseases, a lot, like a plethora of them. And I do have quite a lot of childhood trauma, but my kids don't have childhood trauma. Oh, there's some, but they do have autoimmune conditions.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, there's a lot of work around it. Like it's quite the topic right now. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
He's driving a lot of that study right now. So it's the links to the stress in the body, the nervous system, and the number one cause of disease in autoimmune. And so the number one cause of disease right now in autoimmune diseases comes from stress and childhood trauma.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to start doing lots and lots of breath work.
I think too, yes, do your breath work. Like you should commit to some daily breath work to set the day and the tone. Do I think that everyone should be doing breakthrough breath work to work through trauma all the time? No.
Yeah.
Okay. That's definitely not my message. But understanding and unpacking it does the world of good, right? And it's also like we're talking about one part of our nervous system and having these safe stress responses. We also need to understand the rest and digest part.
Yeah, okay.
Because we have to know when to downregulate. Okay.
Yeah.
So learning to rest, downregulate, slow down just as much as we need to go into our, fight or flight responses in a safe container. The other side of our nervous system is just as important, and if not more, on the daily. Okay. So preparing to be in that state of rest and digest is going to help us be in that slow period, respond better kind of state.
So what does a rest and digest state look like?
So that's being slow with our breath.
Okay.
So slowing things down. So usually a breathwork technique that I love and that's like the easiest, because I think too, we just want to tap into our breath, and we don't want to complicate the counts, the holds, that sometimes can stress us out.
It's like, am I doing it right? Am I breathing right? Oh no, now I'm stressed.
Correct. So I always just say to people, like, be just really gentle with yourself and just take a really deep breath in, pause, and just slowly exhale. And do it at a point that feels right for your body, right? Obviously, we want to maybe go for a count of 5, ideally. But if that stresses you out, just start to be conscious of the breath and slow it down. That makes a world of difference as well. And especially if you're on your own or you don't have an app that's going to necessarily count for you, and you just want to sit there and really tap into that mind and feel really soothed and slowing it down, that's all you need to do is just really take like these long, deep inhales, hold, and then just slowly exhale.
Okay, so I'm conscious of the fact that a lot of people listen and don't watch. So when I'm inhaling, what parts of my body should be moving and what parts don't need to be moving to get that proper deep inhalation?
Yeah, so we need to be doing a diaphragmic breath. So that's in through our belly.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't realize that most people, I think there was a statistic that was shared, around 70% of people actually breathe in through their chest.
Yeah.
Because they're taught incorrectly. And when we're stressed, we automatically breathe in through our chest.
Oh, you do,
Our
right? You're
body
like, and it's just like, yeah.
Yeah. So our body actually responds first to the stress.
Oh,
Because our
okay.
breath changes, and then we realize, oh, yeah, we're stressed. And we start to we get the tight shoulders and we're just like holding everything up really, really high. When we shift that breath down to our belly, we start to automatically start to slow that stress response down. Okay.
Okay.
So when we just go, oh God, I feel really tight in the chest and I'm just not feeling 100%, like I feel really, really heightened in my state of stress, moving that down to the belly and pushing that belly right out to get that maximum amount of air in. And then when we exhale, our belly goes down.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we do 3 or 4 of those, our nervous system starts to change.
Oh, so simple. It's just reminding you to do those simple things, right?
Exactly right. I always say that, how you feel is how you breathe, and how you breathe is how you feel.
Yeah. Wow.
So
That's
it's
wow.
simple.
Yeah.
The training and the trick is to do daily breath work to start to train your body and train your mind that when you're stressed, got to breathe.
Okay. So, what ways? I mean, obviously, 3 deep breaths. What would be a good, simple practice to implement to start incorporating using these techniques into your daily life? Like being conscious of the fact that it's really easy if you're in that overwhelmed state already to be like, oh, I don't have time to this. It's like, I don't have time to breathe.
Just take 3 breaths. You're already
Yeah.
breathing. You do have time to breathe, right? We're already breathing. That's what keeps us alive, right?
Yes.
So what we're doing is we're just changing it to a more conscious breath, right? And
Yeah.
that means that if we have had a reaction and we're in this state of stress, just slow it, just pause, and just take 3 deep, really deep breaths.
I
And
can't
that's going
remember if
to
I asked
actually
this before. In through the nose or the mouth?
just do in through the nose and exhale out through the mouth.
Through the mouth. Okay.
Yeah. So inhale through the nose and then exhale out through the mouth. Either way, right? In a state of stress, just taking those 3 deep breaths without overcomplicating anything is going to make you feel really good too. It's going to
Yeah.
help you connect because the breath also helps us connect back to our body, right? So
Yeah.
we spend so much of our day and our lives outside
Out
our
of our,
body.
yeah.
Our decisions, our everything, right? It's crazy. So just tapping into the breath and checking in and just connecting back, there's hundreds of benefits of just being in that state, right? In that conscious state.
So if you're having a realization that perhaps you need to be looking at deeper breath work practices to perhaps like people that are listening, okay, maybe there's some stuff I need to address here. So let's go through, because again, like positives and negatives, you hear and see a lot of things. So let's talk about some of the different types of breathwork that there are, what sort of things you recommend, and
Yeah.
what that kind of looks like. Again, without going into too much, because I do agree that there's an element of you just need to get in there and do it to understand. But you hear a lot of words, right? You hear a lot of words flying around in terms of breath work. So let's unpack some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing to just really know if we want to activate our body a little bit more. So if we're wanting to move the energy, necessarily if we want to go into a deeper breath, for example, what
Yeah.
we would do is just a mouth breath. So we breathe in and out of our mouth. Okay, that's where we really activate, get those really active breaths. And that can lead into more of those breakthrough breathwork sessions that you would necessarily do in more of a workshop type of environment. However, you can still do those active breaths if you're feeling a bit flat in your day. So actually breathing in and out quite quickly can also help the breath and get a bit of energy into the body. It's kind of like if you think about when you go for a run
Yeah. Okay.
and you're breathing in and out through your mouth, that's actually because you're exerting that energy. It's kind of the same thing with the breath, right? So usually if you want to activate, you want to get a bit of energy into you, you would breathe in and out through the mouth. Okay. And you can do that again. It's like a bit like a, and you can kind of continue on with that for a few rounds, just a 1, 2, 1, 2, in and out. Okay.
Okay.
I like to do that sometimes if I feel a bit flat in the morning, if I've woken up and if we're already slow, sometimes we wake up and we're slow.
Yeah.
We're just like, we're actually in a good state. So sometimes I just sit at my desk, or if you're in the salon and you're feeling a little bit flat, just do a couple of rounds of breathing in and out. 1 and 2 will help you feel a little bit more up. Okay.
Yeah.
If we're woken up stressed and we got into the salon and the clients were cancelled and you just had this day just kind of flip it on its head, that's when we go through and we breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth, and we just go nice and gentle and nice and slow.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really like responding to the feeling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But not everyone even registers how they're feeling in the morning.
Feeling.
It's not even something that we start to think of, but we have to check in. That is how you're going to start your day on a really good foot. Check in with how you feel and pop a reminder in your phone. Have an alarm that goes off. How am I feeling and what's my breath today?
Oh, I like that.
Because we have to create a habit, and it takes around 30 days for us to create a new habit. And if you are committed into really learning to sort of reset that nervous system a little bit more, then that would be my best advice around that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, it's the same with sleeping. If we need to wind down our day and we need to tap into that brain to slow down, again, slow the breath down.
Interesting. So for people struggling to sleep, is breathwork a positive thing for them to do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's a technique that you could called 4-7-8. Can be a little bit tricky to obviously again count the breaths. Some people like to and some people don't, right?
Okay.
Some people like to focus on numbers. When you count sheep, I don't know. My parents always used to tell me to count sheep and it would put me to sleep. Think about the counting like that. Instead,
not put me to sleep. It just gave me so many questions. Like, why am I counting the sheep? What does sheep look like? Is it winter or summer? Do the sheep still have wool? Have the sheep been shorn? Why are the sheep out in the paddock? What are they jumping? Like, what are the sheep jumping or are they walking? Should I see them through? Yeah, it led to a lot of questions.
So in that case, knowing that means I wouldn't be counting then.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is the thing, and that's okay. You don't have to there's no you got to make these things work for you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my believer as a facilitator, right? We have all these tools, and breathwork is a bucket full of hundreds of tools. Breathwork is a banner, there's a bucket, and there's so many tools. And this is why it's also important, and something I pride myself on. I'm like, I work one-on-one with clients. I see how they breathe. I retrain their breath. And that then leads them to go to sometimes these bigger workshops, right?
Yeah.
So the one-on-one environment is beautiful because I can see how you breathe. I can see everyone breathes differently, right? And so I can see it in your body. I can guide you. I help you. We work out these little things that work for you, that don't. It's the same thing as going to a PT, but I'm coaching you on how to breathe properly and help
Yeah.
you understand what's going to work for you. So, Jen, you
It's
don't
like
like
you're a
that?
PT for for your nervous system, right?
Yeah, essentially. Absolutely. It's I'll share something with you. The last 8 months I've been working with ex-prisoners, and
Oh, we've touched on this. I'm so interested to hear about this.
and they all came to me not being able to breathe properly at all. They
Wow.
were like, they were short, sharp in their chest all day because they are in a state of fear every day once they get out. And they get out, they've got to adjust to the normal world. They're out there trying to get accepted, be seen, be heard, face judgment. There are so many layers. And when they come to my class every week, watching their breath improve is like the biggest. I felt like I'd achieved everything in this life.
Wow.
And that's that importance of that kind of like watching someone breathe and understanding their stories, understanding, their trauma and guiding them through those best practices.
Were they willing participants? Like, is this something that's been recommended to them, or is it something that they've sort of, like, you're only going to get out what you put in, right? So, how do you cope with like
Absolutely.
resistance and, how did that situation pan out?
Yeah. There was quite a bit of resistance at the start. They were like breathing, like they kind of made a bit of a joke out of it at the start. And I would just roll with it. I'd be like, yeah, we can have a bit of a laugh at it. And it was a big learning curve for me too, because, sometimes we'd run a class and they just fall asleep. And it
Yeah,
was like
okay.
synchronized snoring at one point. But I persisted and I was like, this is too long for them. Their attention span is not going to sit through an hour class. So let's shake it up. Let's figure out what's going to work for them. And I would try different things. We would sometimes do somatic movement, guided meditations leading into breath work. There was a bit of a trial and error on my side to see what was going to actually help them. And the biggest learning that I've learned from these men is, number one, they wanted to actually they wanted to chat a lot more.
Oh, wow.
And so we would hold space for 30 minutes at the start and we would have really uncomfortable conversational topics.
Oh my
So
gosh, I love that.
this helped them start to lean in to what they wanted to work on and like set the tone for like leading into the breath work. So they would come, we would chat. Some of the conversations were like very eye-opening, and they started to trust me. And an element of that is trust. Like they're in the
Yeah.
space of a female, which was a little uncomfortable potentially for some of them based on certain scenarios or how they may have ended up in prison. So building that trust took quite a little while. And
Yeah.
once we've built this trust, what's kind of happened now is they've almost so they part of their program, they'll come, they do the breath work, and then the boys are recommending the new guys to now come to breath work. And I was like,
That's so cool.
it's so beautiful. So I now have a new lot of men that have started coming, and now I understand how that word breath work is kind of filtering through, because one of the guys says to me the other day, oh, these UFC fighters are now doing breath work and they have a breath work coach. And I said, yeah, this is important stuff. So now he's like, oh, I'm going to come. Like, this is amazing, and just as much as the breath work is important, it's them learning to trust their body. And the biggest the most eye-opening session I actually did with them was I did a really deep meditation and breathwork class on their future self.
Yeah.
And they had never thought about that yet, because when they get out of prison, it's like, oh my God, like they're in survival. they'd gone from a pretty chilled life in prison. Like, I'm not going to lie, like it's not a bad place, right? It's
For
pretty
many,
crazy,
for
right?
many people, it's probably better than the circumstances that they were in before they were in there.
Absolutely. Now they have responsibilities. They have to get a job, which is so challenging for a lot of these men because a lot of people judge them for what it is. But let me tell you, and I'm like, these men, after what they have gone through, and once they start doing that work on themselves, they are better than half of the society out there that haven't been to prison, you
Yeah,
know?
that it just aren't acknowledging all the stuff they've got going on and pushing it to the corner.
Correct. Like, they're dedicated. They're dedicated to connect back with their family. They're dedicated to get back into the workforce. They're dedicated so much to never go back to the life that they had, go back to the drugs, like all of the things that kind of come with that. And yes, some of them have dropped off, right? Like, and it's been a little sad to sort of, but they kind of come back, you know, and the community of these men and how they support each other is so, so, so beautiful. And, you know, I always say that working with these men has helped me so much. Like, it's just as healing for them as it has been healing for me because I've had such a deep father wound.
Yeah.
And as crazy as it sounds, I'm in the right place right now working with these men because I have the capacity to hold that space for them, learn about them, understand them, committed to them, I'm consistent for them. And that's also helping them feel safe in females' presence.
Yeah.
And it's powerful. It's a powerful room when they come in there. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's really special because there's a lot of talk about men in general at the moment. And I think a lot of it can be really negative, but that's really a focus on, okay, well, what are we doing? How can we
Yeah.
facilitate change? How are we supporting men to be better men, you know?
100%. And, you know, 75% of all suicides in Australia are men.
Wow.
Yep. That was the latest. That's the statistic from 2023. And that's because, again, men weren't taught to express themselves, they're taught to suppress.
Yeah.
And, you know, us as women, you know, it's a bit of a controversial sort of, I think, topic a little bit sometimes when I speak up about this, but we have to do the work to help these men also through their journey. It's a collective sign, both
Yes.
female and women. And us women, we're like we're the emotional ones, and we're the ones that like want to push and speak up, share it. Come on, you know, that real drive. I want to hear you. I want to see you. We've got our right intentions, but we have to understand that it's a gentle process for men. It really is. It's gentle. And we have to learn to just have that bit more patience and lean in more with the curiosity and the compassion to how they are. You know, if a man's got his walls up, they're just wounds that he needs to work on. So have compassion to potentially being curious to those wounds.
Yeah.
Because once you can just learn to be that bit of a better space holder underneath all of that, they flourish. And so if we can learn to encourage more men, hold the space, help them heal, it becomes this beautiful cycle, you know?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, that's really, really, it's everybody. We're a collective.
We really, really, really are. And it's, if we can just take responsibility, I think all of us, just take a bit of responsibility for where we are and how we are, you know, and
Yeah.
own it. And if we just solely focus on those things, it helps everyone. Helps your workplace, it helps your personal life, and encouraging that curiosity to learn about yourself is a
Yeah.
big thing, you know? Mm.
I think that's the takeaway, like that we're really focusing on today, right? Is that you need to take the time to learn about yourself, to even take that moment to check in the morning and go, oh, how do I feel? Like, how do I actually feel? And how am I going to respond to that for the rest of the day?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about things like Wim Hof. Love that man. Holotropic, like there's phrases, there's like terms floating around. So what do these kinds of things
Mhm.
mean and how are they? Because I guarantee that there's people that are going to hop off this thing and go like, oh, I want to do breath work. And it's so different.
Mhm.
Like, are there different types for different situations? Are there like gateway breath work where we're just going to ease ourselves in? Like, what are we doing? What does everything mean? What should we be looking for?
It's a great question. And I think in the space of breathwork right now, I think it's really important that if you've not done breathwork before, absolutely, if you feel called to rock up to your first workshop that says breakthrough breathwork or, you know, usually breakthrough breathwork is kind of like usually the most common language
Yep.
used. And that's going to be more of that holotropic breathwork, right? The term holotropic, I mean, again, it's a term that's been used for centuries, and it dates back to Stan Grof. He was the original founder of kind of this holotropic breathing. And so, kind of what's happened is there's like been stems off from that holotropic breathing. Not a lot of people use that term necessarily, but if you do see it, that's quite an activating breath, right? That's where we're going to really tap into that subconscious. We're going to shift a lot of things in our body. We're going to move through things and breakthrough holotropic, usually like a 3-hour workshop that's going to really help you feel like you've got something at the end of that. In saying that though, your body's going to show you what you need at that time. So my advice to everyone that if you go to a breakthrough breathwork session and you might not get some sort of breakthrough, you weren't ready for that yet. Your body
Yeah.
wasn't
Okay.
ready to show you that. Okay. Every breathwork session is so different. No breathwork class or no breathwork session is the same. So never go in with an expectation of like, oh, well, I didn't get this body response, so it didn't work.
Yeah.
Just really going curious, open-minded, and whatever needs to come up in your body is going to come up and what needs to be there at that time. So trust that process. So look for something that, someone has a story that also resonates as a facilitator. I think that's also really important because currently, there's quite a lot of facilitators like coming through. Where do they do their training? Are they practicing? How many hours maybe have they done? Ask those questions
I was
as
going to say, is
well.
that the kind of information that's readily available, or is that something you're going to have to dig deeper for?
Totally, because it's not regulated right now. Okay.
Okay.
It will be eventually because, a lot of it, it's kind of like, think about hairdressing, for example. It's like not necessarily regulated. Like you can still rock up with a pair of scissors and say, oh, yeah, I'm qualified. But are you? Or how
Yeah.
many hours, how many years? You know what I mean? I think the thing to look out for is, are they working out of a studio? Is there somewhere that they're working that has a reputation as well? I think that's something really important to look for. Are they regularly practicing? I think that's really important. And what's their story and what's their journey? Because what makes a good breathwork facilitator, right? And this is a topic
Yeah.
that I kind of think about quite often, is someone who's done the work and who is driving that, right? Because that's what helps you hold space. And I run classes every week, and every week my classes are different because do you know what? I'm deep in some work right now. I've been in a really deep mentorship these past couple of months, and like I've been going like on layers of my journey like I've never delved before. And that's been showing up in my classes, right? And I've been able to
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
people even deeper, so is that facilitator committed to doing that work? Because that's what shows up in your classes. And that's what helps you get the best out of people and dive in and get that curiosity in those questions. I'm working one-on-one with some men at the moment that just don't feel comfortable to come to a class, but they want to go to these one-on-ones. And that has tested my facilitation absolutely, because these men, we know they're guarded, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they walk in with their ego like, yeah, breathwork. So it's like this process of me recognizing, oh, what do I got to work on to get these guys deep, to get in there,
Yes.
So it's been a beautiful process, and it's been amazing. But it's like, again, the facilitator has to have done that work to get you to go deep and understand those layers, and understand the science of the breath and the contraindications, and there's a bit of that layer. So what I would recommend to all listeners out there is there are quite a lot of breathwork facilitators out there, but what have they done? Do you connect with them? Have they, are they practicing? All those questions is something that I would definitely be looking for. And holotropic breathing, conscious connected breathing, breakthrough breathwork kind of fall under some of those parts that are really going to take you deep, and you're going to get those like real powerful drives. And then you've got the gentle breath work. I mean, yoga has been, we've got yoga students everywhere. We've got yin yoga. We've got all these other forms of breath work that are gentle and require movement and all those sorts of things too. So, explore all those avenues and find what works for you, because there is no one size fits all. We are all different, and that's what makes it also all beautiful. But I would say, if it is something you are curious about, is definitely find a coach that does offer some one-on-ones, because that's going to help you when you go to some classes to really like, cool, I'm understanding this. I'm learning about my body. It's tailored to you. And then that's going to help you probably explore your breath a little bit deeper.
I think you touched on something really important there as well. It's like the science of the breath and contraindications, because I think there is a little bit of a perception that there's not a science behind it, and there really is. So yeah, like it's not just sitting around having like breathing in and breathe, like that's not what it's actually all about. So let's touch on that. Contraindications. What are we talking about there?
There's quite a list. And when we say these contraindications too, they can also, contraindications, there's definitely quite a long list, right? But it's just letting your facilitator know that maybe you are on some medications, on some, anti-anxiety medications, maybe you're pregnant, maybe all those kinds of things. It doesn't mean that you can't do breath work. It just means that your
they need to
facilitator.
know.
Correct. Absolutely. Right. Everyone can do breath work, right? But it's just let your facilitator know. No need to hide these things, so that the breathwork facilitator can understand where you're also at, what needs to be worked on, and maybe look at the way that you're breathing in a different manner. Okay. So
And
there's nothing
no point
that's
in
really
hiding these things, because it's just the same as one of our clients saying, no, I've never bleached my hair, knowing full well that under their dark hair, they bleached it like a year ago and it's going to melt off. And it's just knowing that information so that person knows how to approach you in a safe way, right?
Exactly. And if you do go to a workshop, you should see a list. Like, there should be a form that you fill out always that will have quite disclosed questions, all those sorts of things. So always make sure that there's a waiver or a form attached before you go to these breathwork sessions, because that also shows that the facilitator is also genuinely caring about the people that are showing up, right?
Yeah.
So that's also just something really, really, really important to look out for. And, a lot of, breathwork really helps a lot with anxiety. And I mean, anxiety is this also big topic. And my personal experience, I had terrible anxiety, terrible. It was crippling, but I knew how to hide it, and I hid it so well that I suppressed it. And that comes from, just like, I always say, I always like had this personality when I was in a salon, for example. I'd be behind the chair. Whew, yeah, but deep down, I'm like anxious as shit. Like, this is like, whew, and I was hiding all of the things that were like leading to the anxiety until one day you just either crash, you burn out, and you've got to then uncover all these layers. So,
Well, you end up with
anxiety,
loads of autoimmune diseases.
that too. And, I just want people to know that anxiety, the meaning of anxiety is fear.
Yeah.
The other side of anxiety is just fear. So when your anxiety kicks in, what are you scared of? Where's the fear? And if you get a body response like I do, this is totally overshare, but I get stuck on the toilet for like 2 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Call them anxiety poops.
Yep.
I'm stuck. I cannot get off. And it's like my full body response. For years, I just was stuck on the toilet. Great. I'm like, what? I'm actually really anxious. Like, it's that bad. And like our body's responding to the anxiety. And then I would be like, what am I scared of? Where's this fear coming from? Right. But a lot of that had been stored from my childhood and my abandonment wounds sitting in my gut.
Oh,
So
wow.
once I unpacked that, if that kicks in, I'm like, oh, I'm either abandoning myself. I feel like someone's abandoning me. It's just an abandonment wound kicking in. Send it love, give it kindness. It's all going to be okay. I'm just out of my body. I'm not safe. And we keep moving forward. So, there's this whole thing around anxiety that, people taking anxiety medications and all those kinds of things. Learn about it. Learn where the anxiety comes from, how it got there, what it's doing. And I promise you, when you start giving that anxiety the love, the kindness, the gentleness, not fixing it, just accepting it,
Yeah.
your whole world changes.
Yes. Oh, the anxiety. There's a reason there's a trending like audio on it at the moment. It's such a massive topic, right?
It is. And it's the anxiety is fear. And then when it shows up in your body, it's your old wounds showing up in your body. It's keeping you safe. It's reminding you that there's a fear there, right? And usually when it sits in the gut, it's usually in abandonment, right? Because that's like literally that central gut system.
Yeah.
And, tapping into the breath, bringing that back down, or doing some sort of somatic movement. And that's probably a whole other podcast, somatic movement, but
yeah,
somatics is also
really big at the
important.
moment, right?
Yeah. And that energy has to get out. So if we think of anxiety, if we think of anything stored in our body, has to get out, right? It's energy. Think about like moving cells in the body of energy. And I say I'm 39 years of my life. I've got 39 years of stored shit. Maybe 30. I stopped at 30. So maybe I'm being good the last 9 years, right? But it's like, think about 30 years before I started my journey of stuff, like of cells of energy just stuck and stored. The breath helps get that out. So does somatic, right? So does moving, shaking our hands, like getting that energy out. If we cry and we feel it in our body, it means that's a memory in the body that we've got to get out. So yes, like there's a lot to unpack, but movement is just as good as well.
Yeah.
As the breath included in that.
But lots of people move and don't breathe when they move.
Correct. And you might see, and I think like some of the content online can be a little full on when it comes to breathwork as well. They're sacred spaces, and, don't freak out too much if you see any of that online as well. To anybody, you might see people move while they're breathing, like their body's like having quite a response. That's just energy flowing and getting out. It's the same with tetany. We call it tetany. When you go into
the T-Rex sounds, I got that.
You might start to do that. That's a body response, and you got to get it out. That's like, again, you got to shake it out if you can, or you can just stay in it, right, and get to the other side. But it also means you got to breathe a little deeper. Yeah. Yeah. So getting that breath and really moving into that deepness can also be really, really great. Here. Again, probably doing one-on-one coaching a little bit and training and understanding these things can be just so, so helpful and so, so valuable to help you on your breathwork journey. Yeah.
So do you think that's the best way to start is one-on-one before you go into a group setting? Or does it just depend on the person and how comfortable they are with that kind of thing?
Totally depends on the person, right? I don't want to say that there's a wrong and right. I just think you know what you need and what you're ready for. But I do believe that people do get the best out of the classes generally if they have done a bit of a one-on-one. They've had that time to understand how their breath works, you know. But if you want to go to a workshop, go do your thing, you know what I mean? But if you ever get curious and you do want to learn a little bit more, a one-on-one is definitely super helpful. Yeah.
Okay. We need a checklist of things that people need to be considering with their breath. So let's say first one is when you wake up in the morning, check in with yourself.
Yeah.
And then breathe accordingly, right?
Absolutely. Check in. Am I feeling anxious, stressed, tired? How am I feeling? Perfect. If I'm anxious, I need to slow things down. I need to maybe not have a coffee in the morning. Maybe it's, you know, I'm a big fan of cacao. I love cacao. And, you know, that helps me, the taste, it helps me be present. It's like this activeness that I just love, right? And it's a sacred, beautiful drink to be drinking in the morning. So I'll be gentle and I'll slow it down or I'll have my cacao. But if I'm tired and I'm like, get shit done and I'm like tired, then I would just do a little bit of a faster breath work and then have it. You can have your coffee too, even though.
I was just going to say that. Would you have coffee too? Like, would you have a coffee? Do you recommend coffee?
Not necessarily, you know, technically not a good idea when you are doing breath work because it can just heighten the feeling a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone's different as well. If you're ever going to a breakthrough breathwork class, definitely go on an empty stomach. Don't eat food. Always highly recommend.
Interesting.
Yeah, always highly recommended. Yeah, eat way hours before. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because you can feel enough. You don't feel as well. And you can't, if you've got a full belly and you're trying to get a full belly with air, it's not necessarily the most ideal.
Yeah. And then should people be taking breathwork breaks during their day?
If you can, like, you know, ideally it'd be amazing, you know, to tap into, there's a method that we call coherence breathing. Okay. And it's just to breathe in through the nose for 5 and an exhale for 5. And it is one of the most backed breathwork techniques scientifically because it's getting our body back into that coherence state. Okay. So if you can in the middle of your day, and especially for my fellow hair people, it's so important to just check in with yourself whilst you're holding space because, you know, like you take on so much energetically, you know, so definitely between clients while you're mixing color, just pause a little bit, take some deep breaths, get prepared and have those resets. Maybe it's a thing that every time you're in the back room, back room breaths, you know, and maybe you're standing there mixing a bowl with someone next to you and you both do it together. Like it could be something that you start in the salon, like, but it does start to change and just commit to those habits. So check in with yourself, take those breaks if you can, but like all things, just start small and then add on, because we all have a habit of like, yeah, I'm going to do all the things and then we don't stick to it.
I'm going to do a 1-hour breath work and meditation every morning before I get up. Yeah.
Totally. And I think if you do have a studio near you that you can show up and do the hour and like be in an immersive experience, definitely commit to that, right? Like if that's going to be part of your routine every week, 100% make that part of it. But if you don't have access to that, right, just start those smalls, check in with yourself, do the little things, and they all add up at the end of the day. It's like that 1% commitment to like just being that little bit better. And it's also something that you're doing for yourself and you're already breathing all you're doing is just shifting your breath a little bit.
I've never been so conscious of how I am breathing for an hour. Every time it was like, oh yeah.
That's beautiful. And that's what we want to do. We want to start to train our brains to start just checking in,
Yeah.
like, and our natural breath, right? Like that, our heart's always beating or naturally breathing, right? So it's just when we start to consciously tap into that breath, we want to kind of move that head, that belly, and just get those really nice deep belly breaths.
I'm conscious because I'm conscious of our conscious breathing. I'm conscious that we have to wrap up soon. But
Yes.
are we born do we forget how to breathe like properly? Is that what happens? Like, does life change how we're breathing?
100%.
So we're all born these little people that know how to breathe properly for our nervous system, and then the things that happen to us change it.
Correct. So trauma, like things happen and our body goes into a trauma state and then we don't do anything with that trauma. So, going back to my own personal childhood, my trauma started basically when I was 2, when my mum left my biological dad and I got a new dad, for example, right? And I wasn't held. I never got held by my dad as a child. I was never held and
Oh,
like I didn't get the hugs, right? As a baby, and you don't get that from your primary caregivers, your nervous system is not getting the love, the touch, and the things that it needs, right? So that for me, from that age all the way through, has been in my body and I've never done anything with it. Whereas if you are raised as a child, you're held, you're attended to, crying, for example, for a baby, there's soothing involved in that. So you're helping that child with their nervous system and start to like be that gentle, loving, the love, the touching, all those things help the nervous system also as a collective, right? The
yeah.
breath is part of the nervous system, but the touch, the hugs, the words, all those things that make us feel loved, seen, heard, all help also the collective of the nervous system. A breath, though, can help us obviously tap in and go into that subconscious part of our bodies and our minds in the simplest term.
I love it. So good. So much to unpack.
It
I
is
can't believe that that's been an hour already. It's so much to unpack.
totally. And I think, just don't overcomplicate it for all the listeners because it can be overcomplicated. Like
Yeah.
it is, it just commit to just being a little more conscious and just know that your breath is powerful, right? The breath is a powerful part of our body. It is the language of our nervous system, right? So listen to what your body needs. Learn to just tap in and delve into the body, see how it feels. Nothing good comes from being outside of our bodies. Making decisions, angry, making decisions when we're not tapped in. But if we can just tap in and go back into the body and make a decision, like our intuition, right? That's another loose word that everyone talks about, intuition. Yeah. Listen to it, learn how to listen to that intuition. And the breath is going to help you slow down and tap in and see how that truly feels for you. So don't make decisions when you're chaotic, stressed, all those kinds of things. Just pause, slow it down, and start to make those decisions. And just commit to 10 minutes every day. Set a reminder in your phone to check in with your body. Do 10 minutes of breath work. Play some music. There's many apps out there that can help you also guide you. And if you can, try and go to a workshop, learn a little bit more, and start to just really work on that nervous system.
Oh, such good advice. 1% friends, we can all do this. I think we'll include in our show notes all the details for your particular practice where you operate out of, and just any helpful notes for people looking for certain things that want to take them down this journey. But yeah, our nervous system is such an important part of looking after ourselves. And I'm so grateful that you were able to come on and share all your expertise in this area. I think it's just so beneficial, especially for the the industry and the interactions that we have with other people to be really focusing on how to look after ourselves as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, we're going to keep this conversation rolling about our nervous system and showing up and just being better humans for everyone out there.
Cheers to being better humans. I love it. Thanks so much, babe.
Thank you.